You've been praying, you've been waiting, you've been wondering, God, is this the one? But what if I told you the clue to your soulmate isn't in how they text you back? It's in how heaven talks to your heart. See, sometimes God doesn't give you a person right away, He gives you a pattern. And if you can learn to recognize the pattern, you'll stop chasing people who were never part of your promise. You think you need a sign from them, but what you really need is a clue from Him. So maybe the reason you haven't found them yet is because God's still trying to teach you how to recognize the sound of His voice before He sends the sound of their footsteps. You're not waiting on a person, you're walking toward a promise. And when you get there, heaven won't just give you a clue, He'll give you clarity. Because when it's from God, you won't have to force it, you'll just have to follow it. You've been looking for God to send you a soulmate like a package dropped on your doorstep. No complications, no questions, no patience required. But what if I told you that God doesn't send soulmates the way Amazon delivers packages? What if I told you He reveals them instead? That's right, God reveals your soulmate in layers and lessons in divine timing. See, revelation takes participation. You're asking God to drop someone in your lap, but God is saying, I'll show you who they are when you become who you're supposed to be. It's not about someone arriving, it's about you awakening. God doesn't send people like a vending machine, insert prayer, get a partner. That's not how heaven works. He doesn't operate on your schedule, He works through your surrender. And when it comes to your soulmate, He's not just protecting your heart, He's developing your spirit. Think about it, when you're baking something in the oven, you don't eat it raw. You wait until it's ready, you let the heat do its work. But in today's world, we're used to microwave love. Swipe left, swipe right, instant attraction, instant assumption. But God's love story takes more time, more prayer, more wisdom. It takes maturity to wait for what's revealed rather than chase what's simply available. Let me break it down. You may be praying for someone tall, kind, funny, and faithful, and there's nothing wrong with having hopes and desires. But God sees beyond the list. He's not just looking for who matches your preferences. He's aligning you with someone who matches your purpose. And here's the tricky part, your soulmate might not come packaged the way you expected, but they'll carry what you need spiritually. Because God is not obligated to fulfill your fantasy, He's committed to fulfilling your future. There's a girl I know who was absolutely sure she had met the one. He checked every box on her list. They talked every day, he went to church with her, he was funny, he was good looking, but every time she prayed she felt unrest. She ignored it. She told herself, maybe I'm overthinking it. She confused his potential with God's promise. And eventually the truth came out, he wasn't walking with God behind closed doors. He wasn't honest about his intentions. He loved her company, but he couldn't cover her calling. That was the moment she realized God doesn't send soulmates, He reveals them. Not all at once, but piece by piece. Through confirmation, through spiritual alignment. When she finally let go of what looked right but didn't feel right in her spirit, she opened the door for God to begin the real revelation. Not just of someone else, but of herself. See, many people want to know who their soulmate is, but they haven't asked God, who am I supposed to be first? Your soulmate is not just a reward for your wait, they're a reflection of your walk. God will never reveal someone to you who would replace Him. If the person you're obsessing over makes you forget to pray, makes you second guess your standards, makes you shrink to keep them close, that's not your soulmate, that's your distraction. You can't shortcut spiritual connection, you can't force what heaven hasn't revealed. You can't make someone be the one just because you're tired of being alone. And you can't hear God's whisper if you're too busy chasing noise. Think about how God works in Scripture. He didn't send David to be king overnight. He revealed him in the fields. He didn't send Moses to Pharaoh straight away. He revealed his assignment in the wilderness. He didn't send Ruth her Boaz before she served Naomi. He revealed the connection in the middle of commitment. Your soulmate isn't sent to solve your loneliness. They're revealed when you're walking in obedience. That's why you've got to shift your focus. Instead of asking God, when will they come? Ask God, what do you want to show me right now? Because every time you choose healing over habit, every time you choose growth over comfort, every time you choose trust over control, God is revealing more of what He's preparing you for. You might meet your soulmate in the most ordinary moment, in a season of stillness, in a hallway conversation, in a moment when you're least focused on finding and most focused on becoming. Because God reveals divine connections when your heart is positioned in peace, not panic. And when it happens, it won't be loud. It won't be forced. It won't come with confusion. It will feel like clarity. It will feel like home. Not because they complete you, but because they were assigned to walk with you into the destiny God already designed. So no, God doesn't send soulmates like magic. He reveals them when you're aligned with heaven's rhythm. And the real question isn't, when will they show up? It's, will I recognize the revelation when it comes? Because when God reveals your person, you won't chase. You'll just know. You've been taught to chase the spark, to wait for fireworks, to expect your heart to race and your stomach to flip, and you've been calling that love. But let me tell you something that could save you years of confusion and heartbreak. Peace is louder than chemistry. The world teaches you to follow the butterflies. But butterflies can flutter in the presence of toxicity just as easily as they do in the presence of truth. Chemistry can show up in trauma bonds, in fleeting flings, and in emotionally unstable relationships. But peace only shows up where God is. Peace is heaven's confirmation that your heart has found something real. Think about it. You meet someone new, and it's electric. They're charming, they're attractive. They say all the right things. You feel like you've known them forever. It feels exciting, but if you're honest, it's also exhausting. You're always overthinking what to text back. You're constantly questioning if they're being honest. Your gut feels tangled, but you brush that off and say, this must be love, because it's intense. Let me flip the script on you. Peace isn't loud. Peace doesn't make your heart race, it settles it. Peace is when your soul stops striving. Peace is when you can be fully yourself, unfiltered, unedited, and still feel completely safe. I know a woman who dated a man for years. The chemistry was undeniable. Everyone said they looked perfect together. But every few months she'd be crying in her car, praying for clarity. God, show me if he's the one. And do you know what God kept showing her? Restlessness, anxiety, confusion. She kept ignoring it because the chemistry was so strong. But chemistry can trick you. Peace never lies. Eventually she had the courage to let go of what felt good but didn't sit right. It wasn't easy. But as soon as she walked away, her spirit breathed again. And not long after, she met someone else. No fireworks, no adrenaline rush. Just steady, calm, consistent love. She told me, at first I thought it was boring. But then I realized it was peace. I had just never known what peace and love felt like before. That's how God works. He doesn't lead you by adrenaline, he leads you by assurance. And here's what's dangerous. The enemy can disguise chemistry as confirmation. He'll send people into your life who trigger your insecurities and call it connection. He'll send you situations that feel familiar because they match your unhealed wounds, and you'll think it's love, when really it's your trauma talking. You have to learn the difference between being drawn to someone's energy and being aligned with their spirit. Because real love doesn't always come with sparks. It often comes with silence. With a sense of I can exhale around you. With a quiet kind of safety that doesn't demand attention but deserves trust. Let's talk about daily life. Peace looks like someone who doesn't play games with your emotions. Peace is when you don't have to check your phone every 5 minutes, wondering if they ghosted you. Peace is when you have a disagreement and they don't withdraw or explode, they communicate with maturity. Peace is when you walk into a room together and don't need to perform to be loved. Peace is when their presence doesn't add pressure, it brings perspective. When God is in it, peace is present even in the process. You won't feel like you're walking on eggshells. You'll feel like you're walking on purpose. Now, does that mean there won't be excitement? Of course not. God is not boring. But his version of excitement is wrapped in order, not chaos. Joy, not confusion. Intimacy, not intensity. A lot of people confuse passion with purpose. You think because you can't stop thinking about someone, they must be meant for you. But obsession is not always evidence of connection, it's often evidence of internal imbalance. Listen, the right one won't just ignite your emotions, they'll quiet your spirit. And that's when you'll know it's different. You won't need to force the conversation. You won't need to analyze their every move. You won't need to become someone else just to feel loved, because peace doesn't demand performance. It invites presence. I want you to ask yourself a simple question. Do I feel peace with them, or do I just feel a high? Because you can get high off emotional roller coasters. You can get addicted to the chase. But you can't build a future on that. God isn't building you a roller coaster, He's building you a home. So maybe, just maybe, the next time someone walks into your life and it feels easy, not flashy, not forceful, just safe, don't overlook it. Don't say it's too calm to be loved. Maybe that calm is the exact thing your soul's been craving. Maybe that's not boredom. Maybe that's peace. And maybe, just maybe, that peace is God whispering, "This is what I prepared for you when you stopped settling for the chaos you were calling chemistry." Because real love doesn't just stir your feelings, it steadies your future. And peace will always speak louder than the butterflies. You just have to be still enough to hear it. You've heard it said, find someone who completes you. That's what every romantic movie, every fairy tale, every song on the radio seems to preach. But let me challenge that idea with the truth that will shift your entire perspective on love. Your soulmate won't complete you. They'll complement your calling. Completion is a myth when it comes from people. Only God can complete you. Only your Creator knows the cracks in your soul and the healing your heart needs. So when you go into a relationship expecting another human being to fill the voids you haven't even faced yet, you set yourself up for disappointment. See, many of us are not looking for love. We're looking for rescue. We don't want a relationship, we want relief. Relief from loneliness, relief from insecurity, relief from not knowing who we are. And so we make someone else responsible for fixing what only God can restore. You think the right person is the one who never argues with you, always understands you, and makes you feel happy 24/7. But let me tell you something, the right person won't be perfect. They'll be purposeful. They won't show up to save you from your struggles. They'll stand beside you in them. That's what it means to complement your calling. It's not about two broken halves coming together hoping to become whole. It's about two whole people, imperfect but growing, joining their strengths to fulfill something greater than themselves. Let's get practical. Imagine a woman who has a heart for helping others. She's passionate about mentoring young girls, starting community projects, building a life that reflects her faith. But every guy she dates just wants to go with the flow. He supports her dreams in theory but never shows up in practice. He calls her too much. He says she's doing the most. And slowly she starts shrinking. She waters down her fire to keep their comfort. That's not a compliment to her calling, that's a conflict to it. Now contrast that with the man who sees her vision and says, I believe in that. How can I help? What do you need? Let's build this together. He doesn't try to compete with her. He doesn't feel threatened by her ambition. He protects it. He prays for it. He shows up with her, not just for her. That's the difference. God is not going to send someone into your life to cancel your calling. If someone pulls you away from purpose, that's not your soulmate, that's a detour. When your soulmate complements your calling, you don't lose yourself trying to love them. You find more of yourself because they make space for your becoming. They encourage you to step out in faith even when it's scary. They remind you who you are when you forget. They don't carry your calling for you, but they'll carry the weight beside you when the journey gets long. Let's go even deeper. Complementing your calling doesn't mean you have the same gifts. It means your gifts fit. It means their strength shows up where you're weak, and your boldness shows up where they hesitate. Like pieces in a puzzle, not the same shape but the same picture. Think about how God paired people in the Bible. Moses had a speech problem. He didn't feel qualified to lead. So what did God do? He didn't replace Moses. He sent Aaron, a brother, a helper, a voice. Aaron didn't complete Moses. He complemented the calling. Esther didn't do everything alone. She had Mordecai speaking courage into her when she was afraid to step up. Ruth didn't just find Boaz because he was rich and kind. She found Boaz because she was loyal to her purpose. And Boaz saw it and said, I want to cover that. I want to bless that. Real love is not just romantic, it's reinforcing. It's not just about how well you vibe, it's about how deeply you align. When someone compliments your calling, your relationship becomes a force. You pray together, you dream together, you sharpen each other. You don't just talk about your day, you talk about your destiny. And hear me, this doesn't mean it will always be easy. There will be conflict, there will be hard seasons, but the foundation is different. You're not holding on because of chemistry, you're holding on because of calling. You know that the fight is worth it because the purpose is real. So stop waiting for someone who makes you feel complete. Start looking for someone who pushes you closer to the reason you were created. When they love your soul and your purpose. When they don't just fall for your beauty, but honor your burden. When they don't slow you down, but push you deeper into your destiny. That's when you know this isn't just a connection. This is a kingdom partnership. Because your soulmate will not be sent to finish you. They'll be revealed to run with you. Not behind you, not in front of you, but beside you, every step of the way, complementing the call God already put on your life. You're asking God to show you your soulmate, but you're still holding on to what broke you. You're praying for clarity while clinging to confusion. And God is whispering, I can't give you what's next until you let go of what was. That's the key. Your soulmate might already be in your life, but your sight is blocked by your past. See, God often places what we've been praying for right in front of us, but we can't recognize it because we're still rehearsing the pain of our past. We keep replaying the betrayal, the heartbreak, the disappointment, as if that story still defines us. But let me remind you, you can't step into a new chapter if you're still memorizing the old one. Let me give you a real-life example. There was a man who had gone through a rough breakup. Years passed, but he never really healed. He kept his guard up, convinced that anyone new would only hurt him the same way. He met an amazing woman, kind, grounded, God-fearing. She was everything he had prayed for. But instead of pursuing her, he pushed her away. Why? Because he wasn't seeing her. He was seeing his past through her. He projected old wounds onto a new opportunity. And eventually she walked away, not because she wasn't the one, but because he wasn't ready to see her as a new thing from God. That's what pain does. It distorts your vision. It keeps you stuck in survival mode. And when you're stuck in survival, love feels unsafe, even when it's healthy. You've got to get honest with yourself. Are you actually available for love, or just longing for connection, while guarding your heart behind locked doors? Because healing isn't just about letting time pass. It's about letting truth in. It's about admitting, that situation hurt me more than I wanted to admit. That person took more of me than I realized. But they do not get to own my story anymore. You will never recognize your soulmate if your heart is still wearing the lens of rejection. God's not hiding the person. He's just waiting for you to clear your vision. Because the person God has for you doesn't deserve to compete with your pain. They don't deserve to be compared to someone who mishandled you. They don't deserve to walk into a broken mirror and try to love a version of you that was shaped by fear. Let's get practical. Every time you're afraid to trust someone kind, because someone cruel used to fake kindness, you're seeing through the past. Every time you pull away the moment someone gets close, not because they did anything wrong, but because you remember what happened the last time, you're filtering the present through pain. Every time you reject good love, because it doesn't feel familiar, you might be confusing peace with boredom and drama with passion. But here's the thing, God is not trying to send you someone who replicates your past. He's trying to release you into a new future. And sometimes that release starts with a decision, not an emotion. It's the decision to delete the number that keeps reopening old wounds. It's the decision to stop stalking their profile, hoping they miss you. It's the decision to forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve freedom. You see, when your hands are full of old pain, you have no space to receive new joy. And here's what's powerful. When you heal, your vision shifts. You start to see people for who they are, not for what someone else did. You start to realize that love isn't meant to feel like anxiety. It's not supposed to be a guessing game. Love that's sent from heaven comes with clarity, not chaos. I remember a woman who told me, "I always thought I'd recognize my soulmate by the spark, but when he came he didn't bring sparks, he brought stability. And at first I almost missed it because I was still used to chasing intensity." That's what happens when your past sets your standard. You call dysfunction normal, but when healing happens, you stop craving what broke you. You stop chasing what left you empty. You stop glorifying the very thing God rescued you from. Let me tell you, your soulmate doesn't always show up in grand gestures. Sometimes they come in gentle consistency, in a quiet "I'm here," in the peace that follows every conversation. And if your heart is still locked behind the trauma of your past, you'll walk right past what God placed in your path. So ask yourself this: what are you still holding on to that's blocking your view? Because your vision is powerful. What you see determines what you choose. And if your sight is still stuck in what someone did, you'll never fully receive what God is trying to do. Maybe it's time to take off the glasses that were shaped by grief. Maybe it's time to stop calling your walls boundaries. Maybe it's time to say, "I'm ready to see clearly now." Because your soulmate might already be around you, but until you heal, you'll only see through the haze of what hurt you. And God's saying, you don't have to wait any longer. I just need you to look through new eyes. The healing is in your hands. The vision is being restored. And when you finally let go of what blurred your view, you'll see that love was never missing. It was just waiting for you to see it clearly. You might not realize it yet, but sometimes the very reason you haven't seen your soulmate is because your eyes are still locked on what God already closed. You're searching the crowd, praying for a sign, asking for the one, but God is saying, "How can I show you what's next when you keep revisiting what I've already redeemed you from?" That's why you won't see your soulmate clearly if you're still seeing through the pain of your past. Pain has a way of tinting your vision. When you've been lied to, you start assuming everyone's a liar. When you've been abandoned, you brace for people to leave. When you've been cheated on, you begin to doubt loyalty even when it's pure. You don't do it on purpose, it's protection. Is survival. But here's the hard truth: what once protected you is now preventing you. There's a woman I know who spent years healing after a toxic relationship. She was emotionally manipulated, constantly gaslighted, always made to feel like she was the problem. When it ended, she promised herself she'd never let someone get close again. Years later, she met a man who was patient, kind, and intentional. He gave her no reason to doubt him, but still she was suspicious. Every time he showed up for her, she questioned his motive. Every time he spoke gently, she waited for the moment his tone would shift. Not because he did anything wrong, but because her past had trained her not to trust peace. She almost lost him, not because he wasn't the one, but because she hadn't yet unlearned the lies her pain had taught her. That's how trauma works. It creates lenses. And without healing, you'll see your future through the fragments of your past. That means every new relationship is filtered through the old one. Every compliment is questioned. Every kind gesture is analyzed. Not because of discernment, but because of fear. Fear says, "Don't trust that, it's too good." Fear says they're going to leave like the last one did. Fear says people always change, just wait. But God says, "Behold, I am doing a new thing." Do you not perceive it? God isn't just giving you a new person, He's trying to give you new perception. Because if you don't change your vision, you'll miss your provision. Let's take it into daily life. You get a message from someone who actually seems serious about getting to know you, but you ignore it because it reminds you of how the last one started. You meet someone who listens more than they talk, who respects your space, who values your mind, but something in you keeps saying, "This can't be real." You feel drawn but distant, hopeful but hesitant. You're not reacting to them, you're reacting to what someone else did before them. And let me say this with love, it's not their job to pay for what someone else broke. Your soulmate is not showing up to fix you. They're showing up to love the healed you. But in order for them to see the healed you, you've got to let go of the hurt that's been hiding you. Sometimes the reason love feels unfamiliar is because you've been living so long in dysfunction that healthy feels foreign. So when someone sets a boundary, you call it rejection. When someone speaks truth, you call it attack. When someone gives you space to be yourself, you mistake it for distance. But real love doesn't confuse you. Real love clears the fog. Real love doesn't rush you. Real love walks at your pace. Real love doesn't punish you for your past. Real love holds space while you grow. But you've got to be willing to recognize it. There's a beautiful thing that happens when healing enters your life. You stop settling. You stop assuming the worst. You stop picking people who feel like your wounds. Instead, you start seeing people who reflect your worth. God will never send your soulmate into your life while your heart is still tethered to a ghost. He loves you too much for that. He's not just after your happiness, he's after your wholeness. Because only when you're whole can you see the gift without doubting it, receive the love without resisting it, and embrace the future without comparing it to your past. So maybe today is your wake-up call. Maybe it's time to put down the magnifying glass you've been holding to everyone new and pick up the mirror instead. Look inside. Ask yourself, am I looking at love through the lens of faith or fear? Am I pushing away what's different just because it's not what I'm used to? Am I allowing my past to narrate a story that God already edited? Because your soulmate isn't hiding. They might be right in front of you. But until you change the way you see, you'll keep walking past the answer to your own prayer. It's time to take off the glasses of heartbreak. It's time to put down the filter of distrust. It's time to start seeing through hope again. Because the moment you shift your vision, the moment you let God heal what once distorted your view, you'll realize your soulmate was never far away. You just needed eyes that were no longer afraid to see love clearly. You keep asking God to reveal your soulmate, but let me ask you, are you even showing up as your real self? Are you truly bringing you to the table? Or just a curated version that you hope will be accepted? Because here's the truth, you can't attract the person meant for the real you if you're still performing for the crowd. God isn't trying to bless your mask. He's waiting to bless your authenticity. A lot of people are praying for connection while hiding behind a filter. Not just a social media filter, but an emotional one, a personality filter, a lifestyle filter. You're smiling on the outside but hurting on the inside. You're posting inspirational quotes, but behind closed doors you're battling insecurity, fear, and unworthiness. And then you wonder why no one truly sees you. You wonder why love feels out of reach. It's not because you're unlovable, it's because the real you hasn't stepped into the light yet. Let me show you what this looks like in real life. There's a man who spent years trying to be the ideal version of himself for every woman he met. With one he played the intellectual. With another he played the cool and mysterious type. Another time he played the spiritually deep guy. But none of those women truly connected with him because none of them ever met him. They met fragments, masks, projections, and the real him. He was left lonely behind the performance. One day he decided he was done pretending. He started showing up in conversations without rehearsing lines. He stopped quoting books he hadn't even read, and started sharing the stories that shaped him. His struggles, his doubts, his dreams. And guess what? That's when he met someone who said, I don't want your act, I want your honesty. I don't need perfect, I want real. That was the beginning of something sacred, because God never anoints who you're pretending to be. He anoints the real you, and the same applies to you. You're praying for your soulmate to see you, but how can they when you're hiding behind what you think they'll like? How can they find you when you keep giving them a version shaped by culture instead of calling? God's not just trying to match you with someone who's attractive. He's aligning you with someone who's assigned. Someone who fits your purpose, not just your preferences. But purpose can't find you when you're lost in pretending. Some of us are so used to performing, we don't even know we're doing it anymore. You dress how people expect. You talk how church folks approve. You post what sounds deep. You say what feels safe. And then deep down you wonder why no one gets you. Why no one sees your heart. Why you feel unseen even when you're surrounded. It's because love requires visibility. Not just physical visibility, but soul visibility. You want to be known, but you've got to be willing to be real first. That means stop shrinking your voice so others can feel comfortable. Stop agreeing with things you don't believe just to keep the peace. Stop chasing the version of you that gets the most likes and start embracing the version that gets the most peace. There's a woman who once told me, I spent years dating the kind of men I thought I was supposed to want. The ones who looked good on paper, who checked the boxes, who everyone else approved of. But every time I got close, I felt more lost. One day I looked in the mirror and said, what if I stopped trying to be impressive and just tried to be honest? That's when I met someone who didn't want a trophy. He wanted a teammate. Someone who didn't just admire me, but actually understood me. That's what happens when you stop performing. Your soulmate doesn't need a polished version of you. They need the you that wakes up unsure sometimes. The you that has stories with messy chapters. The you that's learning to trust God one step at a time. That's the version God wants to bless. That's the version your soulmate will fall in love with. Because love doesn't grow in pretense. Love grows in presence. It grows in vulnerability. It grows in authenticity. And here's the most beautiful part. When you start showing up as your real self, the right person will recognize you, not because you were the loudest, the most put together, or the most impressive, but because something about your realness will resonate with something in their calling. They'll say, I see you, and I've been looking for someone just like you. So maybe the breakthrough you're waiting on isn't for them to show up. Maybe the real breakthrough is for you to show up, fully, unapologetically, authentically, because your soulmate isn't attracted to who you pretend to be. They're drawn to the sound of your truth, the rhythm of your growth, the quiet confidence of someone who has nothing to prove, but everything to give. And when the real you finally steps forward, heaven will echo back, now they can find you. Sometimes we cry out to God asking, where's my soulmate? But what if I told you, God is preparing your soulmate by preparing you? See, we get so focused on finding the right person, we forget God is trying to form us into the right person. You want a divine relationship, but God says, I can't hand you a kingdom marriage while you're still building castles out of sand. Before God brings you into union, He brings you into alignment. Because the only way your soulmate will recognize you is if you look like the version God is shaping, not the version you've settled into. Think about a seed for a second. No one sees the process underground, but just because it's hidden doesn't mean it's not happening. There's breaking, there's pressing, there's stretching. The roots are forming long before the fruit shows up. And the same is true with your heart. While you're waiting for that one person to appear, God is rooting things deep in you. Patience, discipline, forgiveness, peace, identity. Things that won't just sustain a relationship, but protect it. Let's be honest. Some of us are praying for someone to love us while still carrying wounds we haven't even allowed God to heal. We want trust, but we don't trust ourselves. We want peace, but we live in emotional chaos. We want connection, but we're scared to even be vulnerable. And God, because He loves you so much, won't let you skip that process. Because if He gave you a soulmate before you were healed, you'd sabotage what He sent. I knew a guy who kept asking God for a woman who was gentle, kind, and wise, but he was still quick-tempered, impatient, and constantly distracted. And one day in prayer, he heard a whisper in his heart, why do you want someone who is everything you're not willing to become? That moment changed his life. Instead of begging for his soulmate, he started becoming the kind of man who could keep one. He learned emotional maturity. He started therapy. He cleaned up his lifestyle. And eventually, after the forming, God sent him someone, but not before. Because if God had sent her too soon, he would have missed the beauty of it all. See, there's something sacred about being in the season where God is preparing you. It's not punishment. It's protection. It's alignment. You want to be the kind of person who doesn't just pray for a soulmate, but prepares for one. That means waking up every day and asking God, what in me needs to grow before I can steward what you're sending? Maybe you're in a season where God is pruning away people who no longer fit where you're going. It hurts. It feels lonely. But God's not being cruel. He's being intentional. Because He knows that your soulmate won't be drawn to the version of you that's people-pleasing and insecure. They'll be drawn to the version of you that's rooted and ready. And you can't get there by skipping the seasons that feel quiet, hidden, and slow. There's a woman I once counseled who said she was tired of waiting. She'd been single for years and felt overlooked. But when she stopped comparing timelines and started embracing transformation, everything changed. She got financially stable. She deepened her relationship with God. She found confidence in her identity. And the moment she stopped chasing love and started walking in purpose, love found her. Why? Because purpose attracts alignment. Desperation repels it. And what God has for you doesn't respond to panic. It responds to preparation. You don't have to strive to find your soulmate. You have to surrender to God's shaping process. Let Him work on your heart. Let Him remove what doesn't belong. Let Him build in you the capacity to love and be loved in a way that doesn't burn out or break down. So maybe today, instead of praying, God, where are they? Pray, God, who do you want me to become so I'm ready when they come? Because when the time is right, when your spirit is aligned, when your heart is healed, God will open a door that no one can shut. And the person who walks through it They won't be confused. They won't be intimidated. They won't be unsure. They'll look at you and say, I've been becoming for you while you've been becoming for me. That's when you'll know it wasn't just about finding someone, it was about becoming someone. And in the process of becoming, God was building a love story that only heaven could write. Sometimes the reason you can't see your soulmate is because you keep looking through the lens of your past. You're viewing your future through the filter of your former pain, former disappointment, former heartbreak, and God is trying to show you something new, but your vision is still locked into what you lost. It's like you've been walking through life with smudged glasses and you're wondering why nothing looks clear, why every connection feels blurry, why every person reminds you of someone who hurt you. But God is saying, I need you to clean the lens before you miss what I'm showing you. When you're looking through the pain of your past, even blessings look like threats. Even the person God sends can look like a problem if you're still bound by the pain someone else caused. And here's the hard truth, your past may not be your fault, but your healing is your responsibility. Because your soulmate isn't meant to fix you, they're meant to join you. God never said your partner would complete you. He said the two would become one. That means you've got to come whole, not half. You've got to come with a healed heart, not a haunted one. I once talked to a woman who had been through a toxic relationship, the kind that drains you, the kind that makes you question your worth. She finally broke free, but even months later she found herself pushing people away. Every time someone showed genuine care, she doubted it. Every kind word felt suspicious. Every compliment felt like a setup. She wasn't rejecting love, she was protecting herself from being hurt again. And maybe that's you too. Maybe it's not that God hasn't sent anyone. Maybe it's that your vision has been so shaped by hurt, you've built walls instead of windows. But what if the very wall you built to keep pain out is now blocking your promise? What if your soulmate is closer than you think, but you've been too afraid to see them clearly? God wants to restore your vision. He wants to take the broken lens of betrayal and replace it with discernment. Not paranoia, not suspicion, but discernment rooted in peace. He wants to show you that just because you've been mishandled doesn't mean you'll always be. Just because someone failed to see your value before doesn't mean the right person won't honor it now. There's a story in the scriptures where Jesus healed a blind man, but the healing didn't happen all at once. At first the man said, I see people, but they look like trees walking around. That's partial vision. That's what pain does, it distorts. But then Jesus touched him again, and the man saw clearly. Some of you are in that in-between. You've been touched, you've started to heal, but your vision is still off. People look like problems, opportunities look like risks, and love feels like danger. But don't stop now. Let God touch your heart again. Let Him restore your trust again. Let Him clean your lens again. Because when He does, you'll start to see differently. You'll stop saying everyone leaves, and start saying God is bringing someone who'll stay. You'll stop assuming love always ends in pain, and start believing it can begin in peace. You'll stop filtering new connections through old wounds, and start viewing them through God's promise. One man told me, I kept comparing every woman I met to the one who broke me. I didn't realize I was trying to make sure I never felt that hurt again, but in doing that I never gave anyone a real chance. I finally realized I had to stop punishing the present for what the past did. That's when everything changed. So let me ask you, are you still seeing through your scars? Because if so, you might miss the very person who's been sent to walk with you into healing. Your soulmate isn't just someone who makes your heart race, there's someone who makes your heart rest. But rest can't happen where fear still rules. God doesn't want you guarded, He wants you grounded. And you can't be grounded until you stop letting the past define what's possible in your future. This isn't about forgetting what happened, it's about being healed enough to stop letting it lead you. It's about looking through a lens of hope again, seeing through the eyes of faith again, trusting that just because love failed once doesn't mean it always will. Just because your heart was shattered doesn't mean it can't be sacred again. So today, maybe your prayer isn't just, God, show me my soulmate. Maybe it's, God, help me see clearly again. Because when your vision is healed, you'll be able to recognize what's from God. You won't keep running in cycles. You won't keep falling for patterns. You'll see the difference between who came to use you and who came to choose you. And when the right one comes, you won't miss it. Not because they were loud, but because your spirit was finally quiet enough to notice. God is doing something new in you. He's not just bringing someone into your life, He's restoring your ability to see them when they come. You've been praying for God to bring your soulmate into your life, but maybe the question you should be asking is, am I ready for what God is sending? Often we want the blessing, but we're not always prepared to handle it. We're asking God for someone to love, but we haven't first learned how to love ourselves. We want a soulmate, but we're not yet ready to give what a soulmate needs. God doesn't just prepare you for someone else, He prepares both of you. And that preparation isn't always easy. Imagine you've been waiting for your soulmate, you've been praying, you've been preparing, and you're filled with hope and expectation. But then the moment comes, the person walks into your life, but instead of feeling pure joy, you feel fear, anxiety, uncertainty. You realize that even though you've been waiting for them, you're not fully ready to receive them. Because receiving love isn't just about opening your arms, it's about opening your heart and your spirit to the kind of love that can grow, and that requires preparation. There's a woman I spoke with recently who shared that for years she felt unworthy of love. Her previous relationships were filled with betrayal, neglect, and abandonment. She spent so much time trying to earn love from others that when the right person came along, she almost pushed him away. She couldn't accept the reality of a love that was steady, kind, and patient. She wasn't prepared for it. She had been praying for the right man, but when he arrived, she realized she hadn't done the work to truly believe that she deserved the love she was asking for. But here's the thing, God is not just giving you love, He's giving you the right kind of love, but it's up to you to receive it, to trust it, and to nurture it. If you've been hurt before, you may need healing. If you've been betrayed, you may need restoration. If you've been rejected, you may need God to remind you of your worth before you can recognize the value of the person He's bringing into your life. Let me tell you a story about a man I know. He spent years building his career, climbing the ladder of success, and constantly striving for more. But when he prayed for his soulmate, he realized that while he was thriving in his work, he was neglecting the emotional side of his life. He wasn't emotionally available. He wasn't willing to open up to someone else. And as much as he wanted love, he was closed off to it. He needed God to teach him how to be vulnerable, how to share, how to give emotionally. He didn't need more success. He needed more connection. It was only when he started allowing God to work on his heart, letting go of his pride and fear, that he was ready for the love God wanted to bring. God doesn't want you to just want love. He wants you to be ready for the responsibility that comes with it. He wants you to understand that love isn't a fairy tale. It's a partnership, a commitment, a journey that requires patience, trust, and sacrifice. Love isn't about finding someone who completes you. It's about finding someone who complements your growth, who walks beside you through the ups and downs, and who strengthens you where you are weak. A soulmate isn't just someone who checks off the boxes of your dream partner. A soulmate is someone who sees you, knows you, and chooses you every single day. And that kind of love requires mutual growth. So before you ask for a soulmate, ask yourself, am I growing in the areas that matter? Am I ready for a partnership that is built on trust, communication, and shared vision? Because the right person can come into your life, but if you're not ready to receive the kind of love they're offering, it will slip right through your fingers. There's a man who used to be emotionally unavailable. He would say things like, I want a relationship, but I'm just not ready. But the truth was, he had been hurt before. He had walls up. He had unresolved issues that kept him from opening up to someone who could truly love him. But one day he felt God tug at his heart, asking, when will you let go of the past and open your heart to something new? That's when he realized that he had to stop holding on to his pain in order to receive love. He had to open himself up to the vulnerability that comes with a real relationship. And once he did that, he met someone who was able to meet him right where he was, someone who wasn't perfect, but someone who was willing to grow with him. The truth is, you don't just find a soulmate, you become ready for them. God doesn't just drop them into your life. He aligns your heart, your spirit, and your circumstances so that when the right person shows up, you're able to embrace them fully. This preparation doesn't happen overnight. It's a process. It's a series of small intentional steps you take every day to make sure that you're emotionally available, spiritually strong, and relationally mature. So before you keep praying for the right person, ask yourself, am I ready? Am I ready to give love in the way it's meant to be given? Am I ready to receive it in the way it's meant to be received? Am I ready to grow alongside someone else, to walk through life's challenges together, and to trust that God's timing is perfect? Because when you are ready, God will send someone who is just as prepared as you are, someone who will love you deeply, honestly, and unconditionally. But first, you've got to get ready. You've got to grow. You've got to trust. And you've got to believe that God is preparing you for something greater than you could ever imagine. There's something so profound about the moment when you realize that you don't have to chase love anymore. It's almost like you've been running your whole life, trying to catch up with the perfect person, the perfect relationship, and the perfect moment. But then there's this shift, this realization that love isn't something you need to chase, it's something you're meant to attract. And attracting love isn't about putting on a facade or pretending to be something you're not. It's about being the person who naturally pulls in the love you deserve, the kind of love that aligns with your purpose and your soul. Let me tell you a story about a woman I know. For years she thought she had to chase love. She would constantly go after relationships that weren't right for her, constantly seeking validation from people who couldn't see her worth. She felt like if she just tried a little harder, loved a little more, or did a little more, she could finally make someone love her the way she longed for. But every time she did that, it ended in heartache. She kept attracting the wrong people, people who weren't ready, people who didn't value her, people who saw her as an option, not a priority. It was draining, it was frustrating, and it was never fulfilling. One day, after another failed relationship, she hit rock bottom. She was tired, she was exhausted, and she was done chasing. That was the moment she turned to God and said, "I've been doing it all wrong. I've been looking for love in the wrong places and from the wrong people. Show me how to attract the right kind of love." And in that moment of surrender, everything changed. Instead of chasing after relationships, she started focusing on herself. She spent time healing. She got to know herself better. She stopped looking for love outside of herself and started finding love within. She worked on her self-worth. She spent time with God, cultivating a deep relationship with Him. She stopped seeking approval from others and started standing firm in her identity. And as she grew stronger, healthier, and more aligned with who she truly was, something amazing happened. She started attracting the right kind of love. The kind of love that wasn't based on insecurity or desperation. The kind of love that was built on respect, admiration, and mutual growth. She didn't have to chase it anymore. It found her when she was no longer running. She realized that the love she had been looking for was always meant to find her, but it couldn't find her until she found herself first. Now you might be thinking, that sounds great, but how do I do that? How do I stop chasing and start attracting? It starts with knowing who you are, really knowing who you are. You cannot attract what you don't believe you're worthy of. If you don't believe you deserve the best kind of love, you'll keep attracting love that falls short. If you believe love is a struggle, you'll always be fighting for it. But if you believe that love is abundant, available, and waiting for you, you'll stop chasing and start drawing it in naturally. You attract the love you believe you deserve. And it's not about being perfect, it's about being authentic. It's about being the truest version of yourself, and trusting that God will bring someone who appreciates and cherishes who you are, flaws and all. Think about the way a magnet works. The force of attraction pulls the right things in, but it only works when there's the right alignment. When you align yourself with who you truly are. When you stop pretending to be someone you think others want you to be. When you stop settling for relationships that don't nourish your soul, you'll start pulling in the person who is meant for you. But it requires patience, it requires self-love, and it requires trust in God's timing. I know a man who spent years chasing after the wrong relationships. He would go after women who didn't share his values, who didn't respect his goals, and who weren't invested in his growth. He kept telling himself, "I just haven't found the right one yet." But the truth was, he wasn't ready to attract the right one. He wasn't emotionally available. He wasn't living authentically. He wasn't putting in the work to grow into the kind of person who could attract the kind of love he desired. It wasn't until he took a step back and started focusing on himself, his own passions, his own purpose, his own goals, that he started attracting the right woman. He became confident in who he was. He no longer needed someone else to complete him. He had already found peace in being whole on his own. And when the right woman came into his life, he wasn't desperate for her attention. He wasn't clinging to her love. He was able to offer her love from a place of security and stability. And she was drawn to him because of it. She didn't have to chase him either. They were drawn together because they had both done the work to be ready for each other. Here's the reality. When you stop chasing love and start becoming the person who naturally attracts it, you'll find that love doesn't have to be forced. It doesn't have to be a struggle. You stop competing for attention, and start cultivating a life that's so rich in purpose and fulfillment that the right person will be magnetized to you. You won't have to prove your worth. You won't have to beg for affection. You'll simply be a person who is aligned with God's plan for your life, and that alignment will pull the right love toward you. God isn't asking you to chase after love. He's asking you to become the person who attracts it naturally. When you align with His purpose for your life, when you are whole, healed, and secure in your identity, love will find its way to you. You won't have to chase it. You'll simply become a beacon of it, drawing the right person in at the right time. And that kind of love, it's worth waiting for, it's worth trusting, and it's worth believing in.